what is happening? I was like, I'm thinking this is going to be your just run of the mill Christmas movie like they have before with like actors that are, good, but you don't maybe know
Maybe
all of
lesser
them.
known. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like, Lindsay Lohan? And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I instantly got super nervous because I was like, oh man, people are gonna watch this. Like,
Welcome back, everybody, to another one of our convos. Today, joining us is a very special guest, Jeff Bonnett, filmmaker, screenwriter out of LA. Going to talk to him about kind of the film industry, screenwriting process, kind of, how he got into that, the film industry, screenwriting and everything. And then obviously, the release of, I guess, one of your last projects, Falling for Christmas. So,
that's correct.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Where do you want me to begin? How I got started or just with the project?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll start kind of at the very beginning, kind of like your background. How did you first get into film?
Get into film? Yeah. Well, you kind of stumbled at the beginning there where you said filmmaking, but I am into filmmaking. I've always viewed screenwriting as kind of like a means to an end or a gateway into filmmaking. I first became interested like way back in high school. I had a fine arts background and I was on track to go to an art school. And then at the 11th hour, kind of like senior year, I think, or maybe at the end of like junior year or something, took a left turn because I was like at that time in the very early like budding stages of like finding an interest and a passion in creative writing. And I've always loved arts and then photography and composition and everything. And then I always loved movies. And I also met a friend at the time who had similar interests as well. And things just started clicking. It was one of those weird things where that friend who I'm still friends with to this day, this is going to sound crazy, but we went to the same high school and we're always in the same school district. Never quite friends until we linked up and found that we had the same passions, but our backstory is we were born on the same day in the same hospital.
Oh, really?
Our mothers were bunkmates in the maternity ward, or not bunkmates, but like roommates in the maternity ward. And we grew up different paths and then winded up together at high school and then, found that we had the same passions. And then that was really just like rocket fuel for me. I was like, okay, this is it, man. Like, let's do this. And then we were just off from there and went to the same state school, did a little bit of filmmaking and college film projects there, and then moved out to Los Angeles as well. And then that was where it all began for me, just like doing little goofy video projects in high school, film projects in college, and wanting to make it a profession. As most people do, you get to the point where it's like, this is it. You got to make that transition, move across the country, or at least back then at that time. Maybe now you can do it on Zoom or wherever because of technology. But the kind of zeitgeist thing to do back then was like move to LA, start interning, which is what I did. So that was really like my foot in the door was interning and going from there.
I mean, so you guys' meeting was basically like meant to be. Like you guys should have been.
Yeah,
like it was
just one of those things, man. Yeah. It's kind of
weird.
So,
where did you grow up before you moved to LA?
Yeah, a suburb outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. I mean, there's got kind of a film, like small film industry and community out there, like for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, we were. In fact, me and my friend, we were just like, M. Night Shyamalan. He's from Philadelphia, right?
Yep.
So.
Yep.
His like big second movie was Unbreakable. And we were just like teenagers trying to get on that set in any way possible. So we signed up to be like background extras and we showed up to like the cattle calls, right? And we're in like the football stadium there at University of Pennsylvania while they're filming that scene with Bruce Willis in the raincoat inside the football stadium. And like, he literally came out right behind us and we were just freaking out. But that was like the first experience being on like a real movie set, and like I met M. Night Shyamalan. It was a trip. But yeah, Philly does have a really good scene, even better now, I would say, because here's the one of the biggest ironic things was that years after I moved out here, quite literally a 5-minute shot down the road from where I grew up, a huge soundstage got built.
Oh yeah,
which is not even in Philadelphia. It's outside of Philadelphia, but tons of projects shoot there. Not only M. Night Shyamalan movies, obviously, but like talking about probably Mayor of Easttown. That was set in a similar nearby community area out there. But they have all these little sound stages and professional facilities that have cropped up since then, because the Philly film industry is like booming, and rightly so. And it's just kind of crazy to think that there's a sound stage like
like right down the street from me where you
the size of the small ones that you would see in the Hollywood area here, down the street in Aston, Pennsylvania. It's nuts.
I've definitely been seeing like a lot more like TV shows and films being set and shot in Philadelphia, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
and also Pittsburgh too. Yeah,
kind of. I mean, I see in the background there you have like huge collection of movies, and I think that's Back to the Future right there. Little statue.
It ends at that line right there. Oh yeah, that's Marty McFly, Doc Brown, Funkos.
So I was gonna ask, like, so what was like your favorite movie, like the movie that speaks to you the most?
Well, of all time, I think it has to be Terminator 2, but Back to the Future is definitely second place. Goonies. I grew up in the 80s, so definitely that, and Dead Poet Society for sure. Yeah. That was like a more teenage influence. But those are like the big pushes, and Titanic obviously too, because that was big at the time. But those are like the big, and Braveheart. Those are like the big inspirational pushes where I was like, God, I want to make movies. I want to make things like these. So
okay, that's cool. I mean, the 80s. I mean, it was a weird time for movies, but also like a great time for movies, especially you get like all these weird little projects that you've never seen since,
Yeah. Yes, I know. Like, I mean, some of them are showing up on HBO Max right now, like Vice Versa, stuff like that. But for sure. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like in terms of like movies and stuff, I was like, there's always a movie I think of. It's Short Circuit. Like that was such an odd kind of movie that always stuck with me from that time period, and I literally don't know why.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's sequels too.
Yeah. I want to say there's like maybe 3 of them or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Johnny Five is alive.
So, is there any like specific kind of screenplays that that speak to you the most, that like kind of like inspired your writing style?
In terms of reading screenplays?
Yeah, or just movies in general. Like maybe not maybe your like your favorite movie, but maybe there's like a movie that you thought was just so well written that was like, oh, I really want to like kind of write that kind of stuff.
I think one of the best, not that I am trying to emulate the style, but I think one of the best in recent history is The Social Network.
Okay.
When I watch movies now, one of my little writer tricks is I play them with subtitles. I might not seek out the screenplay, but I will, I have subtitles on all the streaming platforms. When I have friends over, they're like, can you turn those off? And I'm like, I sometimes forget that they're even on, because for me, I like seeing the words, because sometimes you miss things. I don't know. I just feel like I'm also reading the script at the same time that I'm watching the movie. And, it definitely helps in terms of, writing as well. But just from a writer's standpoint, The Social Network, it's basically just people talking, but it's such like a pressure cooker, and it has so many like awesome moments. It's definitely one of my favorite movies as well. But yeah, writing wise, that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Is there like any directors that like maybe directors and screenwriters that you like, when they put out something you have to see like right away? Like for me, it's always Quentin Tarantino. I think his writing, his dialogue, and everything obviously is some of the best in film.
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously, Quentin, James Cameron for sure. Edgar Wright. I'm a big fan of Shaun of the Dead and a lot of his other stuff.
Hot Fuzz. Love Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. Yeah. I don't. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I do. I can't think of too many off the top of my head because that has become like less and less important to me over time. Like when I was younger, I used to like kind of subscribe to all that, but now I'm just like seeking anything that's just good.
Yeah.
Like word of mouth got me to go see Megan recently.
Okay, yeah, I've been contemplating seeing that one too myself. Like,
yeah, all right, no spoilers. It's worth it. Yeah.
At first, trailer, I was like, I don't know, but then everybody's like, no, you should go see this.
Yeah, it's a good popcorn fun. Don't go in with too many expectations.
Yeah, keep your kind of expectations.
Fun popcorn thriller. Yeah, for sure. But like I'm more a fan of like the idea and the execution of something these days. Like I saw Barbarian recently as well. Speaking of thrillers, funny is I'm not like a huge thriller person, but I just referenced two of them. But that was like a super clever movie. And also on that same token, Nope, like some of these big movies that are up this year, like that was one of my favorite. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That was like my favorite of the year. I thought I was alone because I'm watching that in the summer. I was like late to the party in the summer. I'm watching it with my brother, and I was like, "This is amazing." So I'm glad everybody else is recognizing it.
Yeah. So speaking about that, the Oscars are always like a big conversation around the industry, and obviously it's like award season right now. They just released their list of nominees and everything. Is there anything that was like a surprise to you? Are there like any snubs that you think didn't get the recognition they deserved?
I have not seen enough yet to think or comment on what is or is not snubbed. I'm far behind on the movies that I need to see.
Okay. But you like, when it comes around, do you try to like catch up on? Are you one of those like, if it's nominated, all right, I'm gonna go check this out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Although I'm not in any unions yet, so I don't get the screeners coming to me. I have to go find them still. It'd be nice if they came in the mail, right?
Yeah, you think so.
Yeah, so I'm not in WGA yet.
Okay. So have you seen the list of the best screenplays nominated for the year?
Oh man, I did, but they're not coming to mind right now. I just kind of glanced at them. I plan on diving into all that like later. So I work at the UCLA Extension Writers Program, and that's how I also met your colleague Francesca. And my job there, the first few weeks of winter is a very, very busy time of year. So I'm kind of like, I put all the Academy Award stuff off till this month here when I have a little bit more free time and I'm more relaxed and less stressed.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I have the list if you want to hear kind of what they've nominated.
Oh, sure.
All right. So for adapted screenplay, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Living, which I'm not familiar with that movie, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. That's for adapted screenplays. And then for original screenplays, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle Sadness.
Gotcha. Triangle Sadness was a trip. Banshees is also like my number 2 so far of the ones I've seen this year. That's, I think, not only a good script, but it's just like super well acted, and I don't know, it's so sublimely funny in moments that you don't think it's going to be funny. I don't want to get into anything and spoil anything, but yeah, I was a fan of that for sure. I saw that, and obviously Knives Out it was a pleaser for sure.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've seen a good amount of Triangle Sadness. Was an interesting movie. There's a lot of craziness going on, not entirely positive about the way it ended. I won't spoil it, but it is definitely, I think, worth a watch at least. Everything Everywhere, I loved it just like you did. Banshees, I did watch I want to say a week ago, and again, like I said, it's like straight black comedy, super dry humor, but it works, and it's almost like a play, like on screen, if anything. Mm-hmm. And then I think the one I'm probably most surprised by is Top Gun Maverick. Screenplay wasn't a nomination, I think, that I didn't necessarily expect it to kind of get.
That's weird, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really think Top Gun, that's right, I mean, it was a good movie. I love the movie. It was honestly I really enjoyed it.
The strength of that movie is maybe not in the words on the page. I think it's more in the incredible jet stunts that they do and everything.
Oh yeah, it was capturing just the feeling of flying and the intensity of everything. That was definitely the star of the show. Yeah. So to see it get kind of nominated for a screenplay, I think a lot of people were kind of scratching their head. But I was like, okay, all right, I'll go for it.
More power to them.
So speaking about, screenwriting in general, we're kind of what is your creative process when it comes to writing, a screenplay?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier when we were talking about the latest Academy nominations or movies in general, I am drawn to, more so than anything, a concept or an idea first. And then I follow that. So some writers, and again, working at the UCLA Extension Writers Program, I've been there a long time, and I've, through that job, encountered, if not at this point, thousands of writers. And I've had a lot of classes and training through that as well. It's been great. And I've come to learn that there's kind of two kinds of writers. Some are the type that write from a character first perspective, and sometimes they might just start writing, or they just have that habit, they want to write every day, or they just start writing and then find a story later, or they start with character and just kind of go from there. I'm kind of the other camp, where it's I'm a big slave to the idea. It's the idea first, and everything kind of folds into that. So in the case of the Christmas movie, obviously I had that concept, and then the characters were built around that to kind of round out the story and serve the idea, and it goes from there. So that's the start of it. And then process wise, just to kind of give you the brief rundown, I would say, once you start having the idea, then you start taking notes, whether it's on your phone or paper, Word documents, whatever. You compile a lot of random stuff. Then you start putting on note cards and figuring out where everything goes and trying to figure out a structure. Yeah. For me personally, then I go from note cards to kind of taking it to taking a stack of note cards and then trying to write out an actual synopsis. And it's kind of clunky at first, and you keep smoothing it over. And then basically at that point, you get to a stage where you're all right, I think I got enough material here. Now I got to write it for real, as if somebody else is reading it, because this is just for me. If I showed this to somebody else, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. But then you start writing it like what they call a treatment or a detailed synopsis in prose. For me anyway, this is how I work. And then it's scene for scene. So, the essentials of what's happening in every scene. Sometimes you include bits of dialogue. And so, what ends up happening after that for me is I'll have a very detailed roadmap for the draft. And that's how I work. Not everybody does that. But I'm definitely an outline first type of person. And then after that, I'll have enough material to go to the draft stage. But even before then, I'll spend a lot of time with the synopsis. One of my other go-to tricks, just as writing goes, is if you have any kind of computer or phone or whatever, you can just PDF something and then have the whole thing dictated back to you. Yeah. So by the time the whole thing's done, I'll just kick back with a glass of wine or something and just close my eyes, listen to the whole thing top to bottom. And it's as if you can see the movie playing out in your head on a make-believe TV. And then you kind of get a sense of where the holes are, you got to go back and fix. But at some point, you kind of know when you're ready to get to that draft stage. And then comes the the rough draft, which, by the way, if anybody's listening, first draft ain't nothing magic. All right. It is, as everybody says, no matter how fast or slow you do it, the vomit draft. I don't know a single person that just cranks out this magical draft overnight or over a weekend, and it's great. If anybody tells you that, it's bullshit. It's like meant to put out this industry lore to sell a writer or some kind of magic that doesn't exist. Okay. It's smoke and mirrors, just like everything in Hollywood. Telling you this right now. I haven't met I can't wait to meet a person that actually does this, because I haven't yet.
You mean there's not guys out there that just, land a triple backflip on the first go around?
Man, I wish I was one of them. Truly do. I mean, you might get close. I think the older and more experienced you get, because I do know like a lot of instructors I've worked with and professionals, I'm sure you can get closer to it, the more you do it, but still never perfect. It's like anything else. And then after that vomit draft, first draft, whatever you want to call it, then you kind of smooth it over again, work out a lot of the kinks. And then that usually ends up becoming like the first draft that you would deliver to a company or an executive or somebody like that. That's like readable. Yeah. Or actually before that, you would probably want to show it to a few people. But then you hand it over, and that's like the quote unquote, contractual first draft.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you for you, what do you find is the hardest part of kind of the whole writing process? A lot of writers talk about maybe the ending is hard for them, or the dialogue. For you, what would you kind of think is the hardest part of the whole process?
Oh, that hardest part is that first vomit draft, where the words on the page as a screenplay don't exist. This is just for me, by the way. Because the story for me is already there with the synopsis and the treatment. Yeah. So you know what's happening. And like I said, if you read it back or play it back, you know if an ending works or doesn't, and then you fix it at that stage so it doesn't become a problem later. And so the hard part for me is when you're into that first draft and actually putting those words in screenplay format in final draft, day in, day out, just like inch by inch by inch, it's like laying brick. That is really hard, because the mental work involved in that is you figure out the minutia details, like the who's in this scene, what are they doing, what do they want, where do they come from, where are they going? Even if it's a side character in the background, you're thinking about oh yeah, this thing took place at a ski lodge, but what's the layout of this ski lodge? How many floors is it? Where do people gather? And where do certain things take place versus others? And it's such even though everything that comes before that is you research some things and then you write the synopsis and the story. It's for some reason, when you get to that state, for me, that's the real heavy lifting. And then after that, for me personally, because I have a background as a script reader as well, doing script coverage for a long time, then I'll just read it like somebody else wrote it, and I'll take it apart and then I'll be able to rewrite it. And it goes more smoothly after that. But that first draft, man, it's a chore.
It sounds like a long process. I mean, on average, how would you say that whole kind of from start to first draft ready to hand in, how long do you think that takes?
For Falling for Christmas, I started really, really going at it. And I set the whole, I set my mind to actually writing and selling a Christmas movie in Christmas 2017. Cool. And that particular Christmas, I was just nonstop watching anything that was going on Hallmark, because obviously Hallmark makes a ton of Christmas movies. I had been working up to writing this because I had the idea a few years back, but or at least the concept. But my first movie came out on Hallmark in 2015, so I knew I at least could. That was a leg to stand on if I wanted to make and sell something else, and try to make progress in the writing career like that. And so I was looking to obviously do a Christmas movie because there's like, tons of people that make them. If it's not Hallmark, it's somebody else. And then at that time, Netflix got into the game. That was the first year they got into the game with 2 original Christmas movies. One was the one that went like viral with Christmas Prince. The other one was Christmas Inheritance. And I was just, watching those, studying those, breaking down some of the ones on Hallmark, finding ones that were like similar to the plot that I had in mind, and kind of like writing the brief, like watching them and like kind of outlining them. They tell you to do this in class. I never did this. This was the first time that I actually watched movies and kind of outlined them to kind of find the structure that was there. And now I'll never not do it. Like, it was such an influential part of the process early on, watching those. And then from there, that was just like the research period. Did a little research on the ski industry as well. And writing wise, I would say once the new year rolled around, I got back here and I worked my day job again at UCLA Extension Writers Program. Yep. So I'm working basically 9 to 5, more or less. And I'm writing nights and weekends. And I want to say I had the whole treatment, doing the note cards to the synopsis within the span of January to the start of February. And I had known this from a podcast that I found out there about development cycles. And I knew that the pitch process started in February. So I had like a fire under my ass. And I was like, I got to get this ready to pitch or treatment ready in February. So I did that. And then I emailed a couple of contacts. I actually, through my past experience as a script reader, happened to coincidentally know one of the people producing the Netflix Christmas movies back then. Okay. And that was like my first contact. I emailed them with the pitch. They happened to be out of the country on location filming somewhere. And so my number 2 was an exec at a Hallmark that was pretty high up that was referred to me. And I, it was just like they tell you in writing classes, query emails and the stuff that you read in the books. That's what I was doing. Because I even then and also now, I don't have an agent or manager. It's just me using my own connections. And so I emailed her, but then instantly, she said, tell me more. And like, she wrote back in seconds. I wasn't ready for that. And she said, tell me more. I sent her more. They turned it down because they were like, it's too similar to what we just made last year, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, fine. So now I'm looking into other stuff. Netflix person contacted me back. They said they were interested. So I was like, okay, great. So from that stage, sent in the treatment. And I want to say got notes back around March. So it picked up again around March. And then from basically March, April, May was drafting. So it was a very quick process. Okay. And the only reason I was able to, I think, pull that off with a full-time job is because I had a lot of experience and training before that. That wasn't just like my first rodeo. So, classes or writing the other movie that I did in the past. So I was ready at that time to handle that and execute what they needed. And I turned in my first draft for that movie on my birthday, which was June 1st. And then there was a minor rewrite that summer, but the bulk of that work happened basically in 5 months. Okay.
All right. So, and I guess, so after you hand it in and then they accept it, kind of then what is like your role? And then after that, or is it kind of hands off after that?
Well, it's like, it's, as they say in film a lot, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. They always want, if you're on a film set, that means something different. But if you're just writing, it's kind of like that. It's like they want you to deliver. And then you can go like weeks or months not hearing anything. Yeah. And you're like, did I have more time? Because I could fix things. I caught a typo. I just read this. I'd like to fix this. So you just got to like keep these mental notes until they come around for the next one, because you never really want to do any heavy rewrites without hearing back, because you could just be spinning your wheels or wasting your time because they could want something completely different in like the middle of the movie than you just fiddled with. So you always want to just keep a tally of your ideas. And then when you hear back, then you know what they want. and then go from there. So for example, that particular first summer, we had to beef up the romance aspect, and I added a sequence in the middle of the film to kind of do that. And that was all essentially just, they were ramping up to basically submit that with several other projects. They probably put in budget proposals and things like that, put a nice little bow on it, and then send it off to Netflix and say, pick one, which they did. And that particular summer, as again, you do something, you hurry up, and then it's like you wait to hear for a while. I'm just kind of like on pins and needles, knowing that it's going to go to Netflix in like August. And I'm just like waiting to hear back, and it's nothing. And then all of a sudden you get an email and you're like, oh my God, this is it, right? It's just almost like a college acceptance letter. It's like has that level of like weight to it, because you put all that time and energy so far there. And I got the email back, and the first time it was Netflix really loved it. They thought it was a lot of fun, but they went with something else.
Thanks for the compliments, I guess, but
Yeah. So the next part of the process was when the next year rolled around, still knowing the calendar and the development cycles, and, it gets submitted in the summer, at least back then. Now it could be all over the place. But back then it was the summer. And when the next year rolled around, I just did I didn't give up. I picked it up again. I looked at it, and I saw a lot of things that could be condensed, little trimming, fixing things, switching some things up. And I emailed them. I was like, hey, you know what? I think this still has a shot. Let's put this in. Let's put this in the mix.
Resubmit it again.
Yeah, and so we did that, and that is when I got the notice that Netflix picked it up. It was like August 2019. But that was only like a little bit of touching up. So it wasn't like deep diving into any kind of major writing. Yeah,
you already did like the bulk of the heavy lifting before, and you kind of had it in your back pocket. What was that feeling like when you got that email saying, hey, we're going to do this?
Oh, I was beside myself, literally. I mentioned this in another podcast that I did too, but I had this very surreal moment where I was in Westwood Village, which is, everybody I think knows if they're in LA, that's near UCLA where I was working. And, the Starbucks there is the one that's on Broxton near all those movie theaters where the premieres are. Spent a lot of nights there writing this project after work. And I was in line there, and in the afternoon, when I got the email back that said Netflix picked it up, and I started hearing my ears ringing, I started feeling my own pulse, and my like that just like jolt of almost like adrenaline for no reason. Like, just nerves. And I started, hearing the words green light, green light, green light over and over again. And I pulled out my phone. I had my phone out, and I hit the Shazam app, because I'm like, am I hearing this right? These words on the radio, like green light, really? And then I hit the Shazam, and the song that was playing on the radio was Green Light by the Jonas Brothers, which has nothing to do with filmmaking, but it does say the word green light a lot in the chorus. And I'm like, oh man, that's trippy. And
kind of wrote it by yourself,
No, I had a lot of moments like that actually along the way that were kind of, these little like guideposts, like signs, whatever you want to call them. Like it definitely felt like a fated project, even though there was a lot of hard times during the time I was writing it, because I think it's just to rewind a little bit, the whole other side of not only just to get a leg up in screenwriting, but the other motivating factor for me at the time was that, back in the fall of 2017 and winter 2018, over at UCLA Extension, we had a dean running the show at the time that was just batshit crazy. And he was running the place into the ground financially, and at the same time wanting to lay off almost half of everybody. So I was under the threat of being laid off, and there was a lot of drama happening. And my whole thing was like, you know what, while everybody's scrambling and writing a resume, I'm like, I had to focus back and think like, I came to this job knowing it was going to be the film school that I never had, which it was. That was one of the benefits of getting to take these writing classes and glean knowledge from all these professional screenwriting instructors. and network. And I knew that it was going to be a platform, and I never wanted to come out of it just looking for another job. Like I imagined myself always never touching my resume again. I wanted, as like crazy and as audacious as this sounds, I'd rather have IMDb be my resume for the rest of my life than having to, polish up my resume all the time. And like, I've worked in entertainment for a long time. I've had a lot of different jobs. Like I prefer it if this was the end of the line, maybe not, in reality, maybe not. But in my head at the time, I'm like, you know what? You at that time, it's like, it's such a struggle because like, if anybody's ever been through something like that, you're calculating your severance pay and how much time you can live in Los Angeles and survive and pay your bills and eat and everything. And if you got a dream, you're just like, all right, well, you know what? It's now or never. I got to give it a shot. Like I could be okay if I did lose my job at any point now, and try to write this movie instead of writing a resume, then I'll at least have some gas left in the tank here to survive when I'm done this. And then I can find a job. I don't care what kind of job it is. I'll be all right. So I took the risk to at least at that time say, you know what, I'm not going to write a resume. I'm going to write a screenplay. And I put all my energy there, never looked at that damn resume, still haven't touched it. So that's what got me going too. It was kind of like, sometimes you need like your back pushed into a corner to focus a little more. I think, at least me anyway, or, if it's that, or if it's just a general deadline, that's how I tend to operate, I guess. Or it never hurts to have an enemy. But that dean, I'm okay saying this now because it's public knowledge. It was in the school newspaper. He's been disgraced. He was forced to resign. He's out of there. And thankfully we didn't go like bankrupt.
Okay. And you're still here and you have a movie on Netflix.
Almost. Exactly. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So I guess, is that kind of a process? Like, do you have like multiple scripts that you kind of keep around, tweak constantly, and kind of resubmit to different places?
No. I honestly, I have ideas that I kind of like always collect notes for and collect ideas for, and I track all of those. But for me, it's always like, what can I do next that builds off of what I already did? Mm-hmm. So obviously, like right now, I do have another concept for a Christmas movie that I'm getting ready to pitch. I have a romantic comedy that I'm working on with a friend and collaborating with because it's a really good idea. Like probably a step up from what I would consider the caliber let me rewind that. Netflix does a lot of romantic comedies. They do like some super like Hallmark level type ones, like Hallmark adjacent in terms of like budget and style and tone and everything. And then they have like their better ones, like Set It Up, To All the Boys I Loved Before, Kissing Booth. Like they have some hit romantic comedies on their level. And I kind of picture this movie somewhat around that like level or that space. Yeah, a little higher tier. It's not like maybe theatrical. Maybe it could be theatrical. I don't know. But I do have that happening as well. And then I have more of a dramedy, which is the one thing that I managed to write during COVID and quarantine.
Yeah, I was going to ask, COVID had a huge, obviously, impact on the industry, the film industry as a whole. Kind of how did you spend that just writing?
I was
out
not
scripts,
that,
or
I still worked and it was a very tough time working actually because business was booming, ironically, in an education program where other people out there, I think, were just like, well, I'm home and I'm, either working or working from home or not working. I don't know. Yeah. And they just decided to pursue their ambitions and dreams and figure out how to write scripts. And so they come to the program. So we kind of grew past we definitely grew past what we were all just kind of working at full tilt overtime. So I was pretty like overworked for a period of time. But I did manage to do a little bit of writing, but I'm so jealous of the people who are just like, this is great. I don't have to go to work. I get to write all day. It's like, especially the people that are well off enough to do that and not freak out to find out when they're going to go get their next paycheck or stuff like that. Like, oh, I'm so jealous of those people, man. I wish I wish I could have done that.
Yeah. So, I guess what is comedy, rom-com? Is that kind of like your favorite type of genre to write, or do you kind of like dabble in everything?
I mean, I do like it because not only the one that I'm collaborating with a friend, I have another really big idea on deck that I think is going to be good. So I am kind of following that. If anything, just I mean, out of one, enjoyment, and number two, it does kind of follow in like what I've done so far. So they can build off of my credits, so it makes more sense. I don't like the word branding because I don't think artists should be branded. I
But you
mean,
do have
maybe
like, you do kind of develop an identity that people can kind of like
yeah,
point to,
yeah,
like
it
look
helps.
for when they're.
Yeah, I think it helps definitely at first. I mean, it's certainly something that I enjoy and I have a lot of ideas in that area, whether they're like romantic comedies, romantic dramedies. But no, I mean, drama as well. I do have one project on deck right now, for example, with this child comedian from Australia that won America's Got Talent, or I'm sorry, he placed as a finalist, I think, in Australia's Got Talent and did America's Got Talent and then All Stars America's Got Talent. And he was like a little roast comedian from Australia. And you can find him on YouTube roasting Simon Cowell to his face. And it's hilarious. And his name's JJ Pantano. So you can look him up on YouTube.
I think I've heard of the name.
Yeah, he's a super funny kid, and I got involved with him and his family and another person who's producing, and I was really inspired by just that and kicking around ideas, and they needed a person to write a feature film, and then just from thinking about that came this whole story that I was like really passionate about, which was a story about like, this little kid comedian who's gifted, but like getting bullied at school, and he gets paired up with a retired has-been comic who lives in his beat down apartment complex, and who becomes like a mentor figure for him. And I pictured that guy as Jeff Ross playing that role. And so while he's on the ascension, the little kid's on the ascension in terms of finding his space in comedy. And then the Jeff Ross character's on his way to redemption from his past. So it's kind of like this quirky little, it takes place in the space of like stand-up comedy, but it's definitely like a drama at the same time, and is really like heartwarming, the story that I crafted for it. And that's the thing that we're really trying to get going. And like, I'm drawn to stuff like that all the same, character-based dramas. Like I said early on, to me, it's more so about just like the idea. Like if an idea hooks me, then I just can't stop thinking about it, and I have to see it through.
Yeah. Have you, the movie you talked about, it kind of sounds like one of those sports movies, where there's a kid that, is trying to learn sport, trying to get to the next level, and there's like an old disgraced coach or like trainer or whatever that's like, change my ways, and they both kind of affect each other. Like that's definitely what it sounds like, but in the comedy world.
There's a little LaRusso Miyagi element to the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, they work. There's a reason why there's like a lot of these type of, films, because they work. And people like to see that. It's good stuff. Yeah,
that plus I picture it more like there's a little of that, but to me it's more like A Star Is Born is a love story, but A Star Is Born at the same time, it still has that element of like one character on the ascension, one's on the decline. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But they intersect and they influence each other. So definitely. So I mean, like, yeah, I'm always open to everything, but right now there's that. But then most of the other stuff, at least for the immediate future, is definitely rom-com oriented.
Okay, so I want to speak about Fall Christmas. Kind of, we talked about how that started, how you got the process going, and all that. Like during filming and everything, are you kind of hands-on, or do you kind of sit back and just wait till it comes out?
I was out of the picture. This is a funny story. So I got my, as I said, I found out about the green light in August of 2019. And like I said earlier, sometimes there's a lot of waiting that happens. Um, there was some waiting that happened that took it up to like finally January 2020 is when I got what they call like the next level notes, like studio notes. Not only the production company, but Netflix is looking at it now and they have their thoughts. And so you got to figure out how to incorporate and all this stuff. So I've been waiting the whole time, and I've just been, like I said, drafting my ideas and just waiting. I get those, I take those notes in, do a lot of that, and turn in my my draft. And I'm thinking in my head, like, well, nailed that one, and I'm like, I literally just like renewed a passport. I'm thinking about where I'm going to travel after this thing gets made. I'm going to go to set. We're going to go ski somewhere. In my head, I got all these like fantasy fun party time things happening. My last draft was delivered March 9th, 2020. And if anybody remembers, it was only days later when Earth stood still. And that's when, COVID shut down the world. And then I didn't know what was going to happen, but in the matter of like weeks, me at the UCLA Extension Writers Program, along with everybody else, especially in education, are figuring out how to take everything online. We're scrambling. We're working all day. And also trying to catch up with what the heck is happening in the world and this and that, and get in touch with your families. It was a crazy, crazy time. Kind of like, mentally in triage mode all the time. And so I got a call back about the project in the midst of all that. And because at the same time, all of these film productions out there were grounded as well. And all the executives come home. And then when they have nothing to do, they all start diving into their development slate. So I had a friend who experienced this as well, who had a project in development. All of a sudden, more people are reading your script than usual, and you're getting even more notes. And a lot of them sometimes it's hard to like make sense of all of them. And so by the time I got them, I set up a call with the producer that I was working with, the one person who I had been, collaborating with from the beginning. And we went over them, and I understood the notes, and I understood when they needed them by, which was only a matter of weeks. I said, listen, I know what you need, where this needs to go. I know that I could do this, but I can't do it right now in that time because of what I have going on. So I am totally okay handing this off to another writer. And it was a tough decision I had to make. I had to make it on the spot, but I just knew what I could do at the time with everything else that was happening. I couldn't deliver it. I mean, the movie already had the green light. We were, basically, I don't know, at the 5-yard line. Somebody else just needed to get it home. And so, we were pretty close. And so she just took it and she found another writer. And that's why there's another writer billed for the movie, who's a guy who's done a lot of Christmas movies for Hallmark and all over the place. So he did a great job making all kinds of additions and cuts and things like that. And neither one of us went to the set because of, I think, COVID restrictions mostly.
Yeah, they were very careful about who's around.
Yeah. So unfortunately, no skiing, no nothing. I was pretty sad and bummed, but next time, hopefully, but they shot it in Park City, Utah in the winter, like the snow that in that.
So it's real snow.
Skiing, skiing, most of the skiing is real. And like I said before, I think there's a lot of kismet elements to this project. I mean, obviously, Lindsay choosing it is one, but then she got engaged on set around like November of that year. I'm told that, the whole thing that I was doing as that was filming in like November 2021, I was just like crossing my fingers, just like, please don't let anybody get COVID. Please don't let anybody get COVID, because any one single case could shut down
the whole thing.
Yeah. And with movies like this, they only have like 28 days to film the whole thing. And they were trying to wrap it out before Christmas at the end of the year in like early December or something. And so what I found out was that the entire shoot went down, not a single case of COVID. They wrapped it. The next week, everyone that stayed there got COVID. I don't know how it happened. I hope everybody was fine. Nothing major, knock on wood here. But man, that was just a funny story when I heard it.
It was like a little, your own little Christmas miracle,
The whole thing is little by little, a lot of little miracles along the way. And then the one big miracle is it coming out and having the success that it did. And, being like the top streamer for a little while. It was cool. Very cool.
So you mentioned Lindsay. So Lindsay Lohan is the star of the movie. And this is also considered like her big kind of comeback movie because she hadn't been in anything for like such a long time. So when you kind of heard that she accepted this and that she's going to be starring in this, kind of like what were your thoughts? Like what was going through your head?
I almost leapt out of my chair because here's the thing about that. I didn't know what was going to happen with the project up until that time. It was, because COVID, everything was dicey. It's like, what variants out there? Are things going to go? Are they no go? So it did sit pretty dormant in development for, I would say, about a year. And around like May 2021, I think it was, I have a coworker that manages social media, and she also gave me notes on the script way back when. And I was just working one morning, and she is constantly on Twitter and looking at things. and then she sees the article about Lindsay, and then she reads the movie that Lindsay's in, and she emails me and she goes, isn't this your movie? And I looked at it, I was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, it nailed the character name, and like my name was in Variety. And I'm like, what is happening? I was like, I'm thinking this is going to be your just run of the mill Christmas movie like they have before with like actors that are, good, but you don't maybe know all of them. Know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like, Lindsay Lohan? And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I instantly got super nervous because I was like, oh man, people are going to watch this. Like, for better or worse, people are going to see this. It's going to be a love watch. It's going to be a hate watch. I don't care. It's a watch. Thank you. But this is nuts. I was blown away. And then so I don't think that was supposed to get out into the press when it did. I think that
a little premature.
There was a leak somewhere. But anyway, I can't speculate on that because I'm very far removed from that. I didn't get to meet Lindsay, but I did read a lot of interviews, and I had, of course, all these Google alerts set up when it, for the press and anything that gets written about her or Falling for Christmas. So I saw or read written interviews or video interviews around like press time, and she did like reference a couple of things, which was like her time during quarantine made her reflect on acting and want to get back on the set again and get back into it. And then she also had referenced that, this was one of the first scripts that she really loved and really wanted to do. And so between those two, in terms of timing, as much as COVID sucked, one of the other like silver linings, I guess, could have been the fact that she came back to acting and found it then, instead of like maybe before, if like COVID never happened. So I guess it worked out the way it worked out. I am thankful that it did. It took longer than expected, but I think it definitely came out a lot better for it. And she's great. She's definitely a movie star still, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just blown away.
And then she also got married on the set of the movie you wrote. So maybe you also inspired that in her too,
Got married on what?
You said she also got married while she was filming the movie as well.
Oh, she got engaged.
Engaged.
Yeah, engaged. She did get married by now, but yeah, she definitely got engaged on the set. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying, maybe you inspired that too with the first movie.
Yeah, and I saw all the press. Man, actors get to have all the fun, I got to tell you. Writers getting none of the credit.
Hey, I mean, you got a movie out on Netflix and starring Lindsay Lohan.
Well, yeah,
After,
like
I
I
don't even
said,
know how many years that was, so she hasn't been in anything.
yeah, exactly. I mean, let me tell you, she probably has a major team. She had, before even the movie, she had that Super Bowl commercial last year.
True.
And some other endorsements and things going on social media and stuff leading up to that. So there's definitely like momentum before the movie. So that's definitely like by design. But yeah, the big thing being the movie, that was a cool experience. And like I said, it might not have even happened if it was any other time. I'm glad that glad that it happened. Can't fault it, man. It was definitely a weird experience having, like, because I have friends in other countries, like whether it's Poland or Australia, wherever, and also at home, East Coast, West Coast, to have everybody text like pictures of like your title card when it comes on screen, or tell you that they're watching it all at the same time from all over the world when it premieres. And just that immediate thought that I never, like, I kind of didn't understand it until I felt it, but it was like a very strange feeling to have the entire world watch and meet characters that you only had in your brain 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were the only person to know those people. And then to have 90 countries around the world in multiple languages watch this thing was crazy. I don't care how crappy the movie is or how good it is. It's still a phenomenal thing.
Yeah.
It's weird. It was so
it's crazy
weird
when you like really think about it like that.
That's the power of Netflix.
For sure. They have incredible reach, to say the least.
Oh yeah.
So also made me think, like, what else can we bring out with your next, Christmas movie out of retirement? Maybe like Macaulay Culkin, something like that.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be lucky enough to be that guy that brings people out of retirement. If I am, great. I don't start there. I just start with I was going to say, like, the actors may get the credit, but the real satisfaction for me is like the fact that the idea became a reality. Like, it's out there. People are experiencing it for the most part, enjoy it. That's enough, for me. Obviously the paycheck too is nice, but that alone, that was the dream from the beginning, and hopefully, happens again and again.
Yeah. So, kind of what were your thoughts on the movie itself? Like, how closely to your like original script did it actually like come out to be?
Oh, well, I had read the revised script already, so I knew what was coming. And it is, virtually like scene for scene what I had. It is paved over.
Okay.
It is, let's say, some elements were maybe changed for budgetary reasons, some for creative reasons. I'm a big fan of a lot of the additions that they did. And I also thought some of the cuts were wise. But, scene for scene, structurally, the whole story from beginning to end is definitely what I had. Like, I was very proud of that as a writer, because as a writer, that's the kind of things that we pride ourselves on, is like, you don't want to deliver something so sloppy where it needs a ton of fixes, and, the thing that you see next is like completely different.
Yeah.
Or that can happen too. You could deliver the best script in the world, but maybe an executive is just like, oh, this is garbage. And they just want to hire some other writer and change it because they have some crazy ideas in their head, or just a different idea than what you delivered. Of course that happens, but we were all on the same page from day one with this, because I did the legwork of the synopsis and the treatment and the script and all that. So the structure was sound. And I think a lot of writers can pride themselves on that. Like at least what I built there was not a flimsy house that somebody could knock down. Like, they had to play. Yeah, they had to play in my house, and they did a great job doing it, and I loved it. It was very weird to watch it though for the first time. I got to say that, that threw me, because I just didn't know. I was always, because it's weird, because you see it in your head for so long, and then you see it play out in reality, and you can't quite enjoy it in real time because I don't know, at least me, I wasn't like fully present. I'm always like in two places at once, comparing and contrasting.
Yeah.
But then the next day I watched it a few times while I was working, had it on the background. And then the more I saw it, the more enjoyable it was. And then finally, the night that it came out, I threw a watch party with my friends at UCLA. We had there's a sports bar there that has a big projector room in the back with like stadium seating and stuff. So I had a bunch of people there, and watching it with people like live in the room projected on a screen, that was like where it really hit me like, oh yeah, this is really an enjoyable Christmas movie. I think if I was just a normal person watching this unaffiliated, I'd probably get a kick out of it. It's a little cheesy, you know, It's supposed to be like that. It's, you know,
it's Christmas movie. I mean,
yeah, it is what it is. That's what it's supposed to be. It's what it was designed to do. It's not supposed to be like a work of art, but it's supposed to be just a fun little Christmas movie. And I think it accomplished that. And we all got a kick out of it. In case anybody out there wants to watch it next year, we did devise a drinking game to it. The drinking game is anytime you see somebody fall, you got to take a drink. So that could mean physically falling or emotionally falling. Like a little almost but not quite kiss, little bonding moment. Trust me, it works like a charm.
I mean, maybe we could get Falling for Christmas too, you know?
I don't know. I can't say, you know, obviously if anybody has seen the Netflix Christmas movies from the past, there's many that have like, I think there's two different trilogies. I'm a big fan of the Vanessa Hudgens one, and the Christmas Prince trilogies were like meant to be, I think, more just like going off of the viral sensation that was the first one. Each of them are great in their own right. They're all made by the same company, by the way. So the Vanessa Hudgens ones, the Christmas Prince, anything you see with them, the logo in the beginning, that's the company. They make those. And the Vanessa Hudgens ones, yeah, I found those really entertaining. And they have made sequels to those, obviously. I can't hold my breath for mine because what I've read since, obviously because Lohan's on the comeback trail, the Lohanessance, right? She's talking to Amanda Seyfried about a sequel to Mean Girls and Jamie Lee Curtis about a sequel to Freaky Friday. It's like pretty sure Jeff Bonnett is Falling for Christmas low on that totem pole, right? If you're on the comeback. So I definitely don't have my hopes up there, but we'll see. Never say never.
Never say never. So I guess, you know, you have a big Christmas movie out, Netflix, Lindsay Lohan. So like all the producers kind of just knocking down your door waiting for that next script.
No. I have some connections, and I'm definitely putting myself out there, but I just to, quite frankly, illustrate to anybody else that's listening, who's into screenwriting, who's aspiring to screenwriting, just trying to break in, hasn't even started yet. I'm there too. Like obviously I have a lawyer in that respect. So I'm smart business wise, but I've never gotten to the point where I wanted or needed a manager or agent yet. I'm only now at the point where I'm open to meeting a manager, because you got to understand, people, when it comes to your reps, you're losing a heck of a lot of money, and you better be losing it for a reason. So far I've gotten my own work, so I don't need someone to get it for me. But if I have something that I can't sell myself, then I'm going to have to try what I can to go get a manager. I am definitely going to be pursuing that this year, just to see if anybody is open to, you know, signing me off of this movie and also my past movie from Hallmark. We'll see what happens there. But just to be honest, no, nobody's, I mean, maybe I don't have my IMDb Pro page set up correctly. I don't know. I don't have anything out there other than like Twitter and Instagram. So, but no, not yet. I mean, it's more the other way around still. Like if I have a project, then I have to go on IMDb Pro, figure out the producers that I want to contact and work with, and then see if they're open to accepting a pitch.
Hmm.
So even now, like I'd still be at that stage if I had another script. I mean, it's just that having another credit and a notch, like that is it helps. It helps to open the door a little wider.
Open the door a little,
yeah.
Well, I guess that was my kind of next question is, do you have any advice for, young screenwriters or people trying to get into screenwriting and like kind of the steps that they can take to get theirs on film too?
And I feel like I'm still that person seeking advice all the time. And it's funny, like I think my one piece of advice, something that I have learned over a long time, taking the classes that I took, meeting the writers, the professional writers that I've met, whether they're instructors in my program, guest speakers that came and went. I've been brushing elbows with these folks for a long time. And one common thing that I've picked up along the way is that I think no one ever quite feels like they made it yet. And no one ever feels like, they're always struggling to balance work and life. They're always wondering when the next job is going to come. They are always facing the blank page. There's always imposter syndrome. So I feel like these are universal things that artists across the board deal with to some degree. And I heard it from people at all levels. It's just like the level of problems, I guess, are different, but the root of that is the same, because we all have to face a blank page and start from scratch, right? And that's always going to be a daunting thing, whether you're in a team of writers on TV or just by yourself or whatever. I've definitely picked up that. So like sometimes when you're younger and you think like, oh, I'll get to X, Y, Z and nothing else will be a problem. I think that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously you're in a different situation if like you're not struggling to make ends meet week to week versus like you have a roof over your head, you have a nice house.
Yeah.
But there's some form of that is always going to be there.
Okay. Yeah. Wise words. So, talked about a lot. Talked about, fall and Christmas, screenwriting, got into good little insider tips and kind of knowledge for a lot of people out there. So for you personally, for this year, what are some of your goals? You obviously talked about some of the projects that you're working on. Are there any like dream projects you have? Anything coming up?
I mean, I do have a passion project in terms of a low budget feature film. I think I don't think I'm ready for that yet. In the immediate future, the things that I am trying to do are the commercial ones. As I feel like I do have a maybe finite window of time to capitalize on the momentum of what just happened over Christmas. So that's where my focus is right now. Whether it's later this year or beyond, I still do have aspirations to get back to my roots of just general filmmaking. Like I like directing and producing. It's really fun for me. Doing projects like that have kind of been really on the back burner. I haven't done any filmmaking projects in a long time because I kind of dove straight into writing for a long time because I was like, I really need to get this down first in order for the rest to be good.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody who's listening, thank you. Go check out Fall of Christmas, Lindsay Lohan, Christmas movie. What can be better? And
if you haven't seen it this past Christmas, if you haven't seen it this past Christmas, you can always do Christmas in July or just wait another year.
Hey, Christmas is, it's a feeling, it can be at any point of the year. So
you're telling me I was writing this in various stages of the year, just trying to get in the mood, like wearing a Christmas hat as I'm writing or listening to Christmas music. And I was even, the most disgusting thing was I was listening to Christmas music as I was walking to Starbucks that summer that we had the heat wave here in Los Angeles when it was like 108 degrees outside. And it's like you couldn't even walk through the air. And I was listening to Christmas music. I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is wrong. This is so wrong. Yeah, that was a funny moment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Inspiration comes anytime. So you have to be ready.
True
but
that.
Yeah, definitely go check the movie out. We'll definitely keep an eye out for, any future projects you got coming along in the pipeline for sure. And, for sure, hopefully we can talk to you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. This was a blast.